So what's up, guys? It's been a little bit since I've been on YouTube, but this is a new series that I actually wanted to start. Um, it's been in the making for a little bit. It's basically the business of bodybuilding. And essentially what I want to discuss is typically what it tends to be the template or the blueprint. So going from being an amateur to being a pro, there are a lot of things that you actually do not actually find out till you get to the pro ranks. And of course, I'm a newer pro. I'm still kind of learning on the scene as I go. I'm nowhere near the success as many pros, at the top Olympia level. But my goal with this is to help some of you that are coming up kind of have at least an easier time than myself or my peers have had. Because like I said, there's really no blueprint for a lot of this stuff when it comes to navigating the waters of bodybuilding from a business perspective, right? So I took some notes, so forgive me, but I think that's the best way for me to go about this video for it to make sense to a lot of people. So there are 3 or 4 main things that I want to cover. And the first is media presence. So when I first, North Americans, on my way to North Americans, I mean, Fuad has shared this story before. I was in talks with, Hostile at the time. And, they asked me a couple of questions, which they were the people that were responsible for me starting to understand what is actually needed from a pro athlete's perspective and try to set those things up. So I remember being on that call with Ben and, he asked me, I had like 2,000 followers on Instagram at the time and said, oh, do you have a YouTube? I didn't have a YouTube. I said, no. TikTok? No. On Instagram, I was just posting, photos here and there. No one had even heard me speak on Instagram at that point. So it was like, how do you actually know what this person is about, their personality? And that was the light bulb moment for me that made me realize that the physique is not enough, right? Your physique is not enough when it comes to the business side of the house. So a couple of things that I think you should do is, first off, start a YouTube. If you're watching this and you're in the amateur ranks, start a YouTube. If you're a pro and you don't have a YouTube, you're already behind. Start a YouTube. You don't have to be an educator. I know a lot of people out there, they're making content with the premise of they've got to sell kind of coaching or teach people. If that's not your thing, it's not your thing, right? I think it's important for people to just know your perspective on different things and kind of understand you as a person and share your own story, your own journey, essentially, on your own path to this crazy, experience of bodybuilding. So that's probably the first main things. Another thing is like, just be more than a physique, like how many pros do you see online on Instagram? Oh, they post this physique updates or physique updates or physique updates. And it's like, it's great, but you should be more than that, right? Because your competitive prowess is going to be the staple for what makes you marketable or what makes you appeal first to a company, to a consumer, whatever. What's going to keep them there or what's going to keep people staying after you're retired or after you choose another path is who you are as a person. So you also need to understand that kind of when you're looking into this, this competitive lifestyle, so to say. Competitive prowess, basically when I'm talking about that is, and again, this is marketed more to bodybuilders, people that compete. Influencers is a whole different perspective. I'm not an influencer, so I don't understand, how that works. But from a bodybuilding perspective, you do have to have some level of competitive prowess, right? So are you a tier 1 pro or a tier 3? I think and this is just my belief, that you have to be at least somewhat good, right? So if you made it to the pro ranks, that means that, okay, you have some level of a decent physique, right? Now, in the pro ranks, you can't be a guy placing third call outs, right? You got to at least be in the first call outs, close to winning a show. Maybe you're on the cusp of the first call outs, but you're not at the bottom of the second call outs or in the third call outs. I think that's a really important preface to put there. So as athletes, your ability to be good, right? To keep climbing the ranks is your number one priority. But that is also going to determine um, the other aspects of how much you can make, from bodybuilding, from ancillary things like sponsorships outside of stage, right? Or YouTube or merchandise, things like that, right? So that's the number one thing. Now, you combine those two things I talked about, I think that would really help. But the third part I want to talk about is skill development, right? As bodybuilders, I would say a couple of skills you need to know is number one, you need to at least be able to do basic video editing. Like in this day and age, not even just in bodybuilding, if you're doing anything, you own your own business that requires some level of marketing, you need to know basic video editing. If not, you're going to be completely dependent on someone else. Um, a good story with that people don't seem to realize, right? You do all this, you've been trying to get your pro card, you finally get the pro card you desired. And then once you get the pro card, you want to get the sponsorships. Okay, a sponsor finally signs you up. Now you got to produce content for the sponsor, and it's got to be frequent, on a frequent cadence. So now you have to produce, right? You've done all this to get to that point, but now you have to produce. And if you don't have all your ducks in a row, you're going to have to pay someone to do that most of the time. And you can talk to anyone that does that. It is quite expensive to do that, on a pretty frequent basis. So you should at least learn to do some kind of basic editing, and then combine that with some kind of maybe a videographer, or maybe someone on the house that helps you, maybe your girlfriend or someone but you got to have something of your own that you do on your side. Second thing with skill development, learn to speak. My God, I've seen it time and time again with so many athletes. Great physique, put them in front of a camera and they freeze up. Think of your body, yourself as a brand, and you represent yourself. So outside of the pictures and the videos of your great physique, if you can't speak or talk to people or communicate efficiently, you're already dropping the ball. So one thing, and which is why part of starting a YouTube would help someone like this, is to get used to speaking in front of people, get used to speaking in front of a camera. I think that's really important. Bodybuilding is, we're kind of hermits, but in the limelight at the same time. So you're going to be in your cave, and you're going to have to come out of that cave to multitudes of people at a certain period. So that's also another thing. Uh, Outside of the speaking portion, one thing I did want to add there is kind of just having kind of frequency or discipline with commitment, right? So think of the way you go to the gym, you do your meals, you have to also think of the content side of house in a more structured format, right? So you have to do it in such a way that it can accommodate your lifestyle and it's not impacting your bodybuilding. Because like I said, the competitive side is number one. So for example, for myself, um, I work, and I'm still doing bodybuilding. I can't shoot content 24/7. I still have to deliver content for my sponsors. I'm still doing content for myself as an athlete. And then, keeping people kind of updated a little bit too through YouTube and things like that. So the content side, I know for me, my channel, typically you would see I deliver at least a video every 2 weeks, right? It could be more and I'd like to do more, but my time is very, very limited, right? So give yourself a realistic goal that you can hit. Part of that too, I'm gonna add to that is be more than, I think I've said this before, but have specific projects or have things that you feel strongly about that you can impart to someone. So for myself, I've spoken a little bit how I really love amateur bodybuilding for the fact that it's the love for the game. So I feel like a lot of the things that I try to do is more catered towards the amateur bodybuilder that's trying to come up the ranks, right? Versus the pro or you know, just a regular audience, right? The podcasts I do with Beatty and them, my vision, it's not my podcast, it's Beatty's podcast, but the vision I always push forward is we should be highlighting the next pros coming up, right? The next amateurs, so to say, because no one is giving them that platform. So that's something I'm very passionate about. So this series is kind of in line with that as well, right? It's for you guys that are coming up, things that will make your lives a lot easier than it was for me. Um, I'm starting to do these things right now, and I've gotten better at it, but I don't want you guys to make the same mistakes because starting it is always the hardest part. Starting a YouTube, being able to speak to a camera for the first time, things like that, it's always hard for the first time. So give it a go. I'm going to be making more about this subject as things go by, in terms of, sponsorships, in terms of seminars, in terms of just different things like that. And of course, this is a ever moving goalpost, right? I'm not an Olympia level athlete at this point, but it is something that I want to be able to pass on to you guys as I continue to experience it from my journey. And hopefully that helps you guys in the future. So leave a like or leave a comment. If there's any topics you're interested in when it comes to the business side of bodybuilding that I have any kind of knowledge or familiarity with, I'll be sure to make something on it. But this is more of the pilot and the intro, and I hope you guys like it. You guys take care.